Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mental Game Podcast. This is episode 3. I'm sorry that this episode is coming late. I've had a lot of inconvenience this week with my college basically closing down due to COVID and having to fly back home to Seattle. If you know, I go to college in Ohio, play basketball over there at the College of Worcester. So it was very disappointing I have to go home, but it was great to see my family again. So, because I didn't have a chance to contact anyone, this is going to be a solo episode. So, I'm very excited for the solo episode. We'll see how this goes. I mean, I've never done this before. So, hopefully, you guys like it. If you want some solo episodes in the future, comment down in the comments. Let me know what you want to see going forward. If you want to see solo episodes, if you want to see with other people. And if you know me, who do you want to see? I'll try to get them on here. Anyways, what I'm trying to cover today is what went wrong with the Clippers. Because, man, the Clippers, I thought they had the ring in their fingertips when they signed Kawhi Leonard and when they traded for Paul George. I would never in a million years would have thought they would have lost to the Denver Nuggets. I mean, in the Western Conference semifinals, that was just so unexpected. But at the same time, I've had some people I talked to that watched the NBA that saw this coming, and I didn't. And I'm trying to figure out why this didn't work. So I'll start off with the reasons why I thought they were going to be great. Their defense on paper looks incredible. I mean, Paul George, second in Defensive Player of the Year voting last year, behind Rudy Gobert, I believe, and then Kawhi Leonard, we all know, two-time Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP guarding LeBron with the Spurs. Patrick Beverley, whether you like him or hate him, he's a good defender at the guard position. He fights, works hard. And Harrell, same thing, energy guy, puts his body on the line, brings energy. And then they got a great scoring team, like other than Kawhi being able to get buckets whenever he wants, because I mean, Kawhi is Kawhi. Kawhi does lack the fluidity, which I talked about last episode. It's kind of Jimmy Butler lacks it too. Guys like Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Stephen Curry, they all have that fluidity where they can move with the ball, and it looks so simple to get open. Kawhi lacks that. He mastered his ability to score through hard work, which was seen he didn't have that ability coming in the league. But anyways, they got a great scoring team led by Kawhi and Paul George, and then they got Lou Will off the bench. I mean, one of the best six men of all time, if not the best six men of all time. You can make an argument for that. He can get you 20 a night. Then we got Harrell getting you 20 a night, who won Six Man of the Year this year. They traded for Marcus Morris, who was averaging about 20 on the Knicks before he got traded. And then, yeah, just up and down, the roster is incredible. And they had a championship coach in Doc Rivers, won 2008 championship with the Boston Celtics. You'd think, what can possibly go wrong? I think what went wrong is that they had too many pieces. I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out on that. When you're a guy like Marcus Morris on the Knicks, and granted, Marcus Morris is no star, but when you're averaging 20 points a game, for your ego to come in and be the eighth man on the team, and even if you start some games, to know that even off the bench, Lou Will is an option in front of you. And then there's Paul George and Kawhi, obviously. It is very hard for a player to be able to integrate themselves to that role, especially if the coach is not a player's coach. I'm a fan of Doc Rivers, but also not a fan at the same time. So I like the way he coaches. His teams always fight very hard and they got good defensive intensity, but sometimes he lacks to make adjustments to the team he's playing against. So back with Lob City, they blew 2-3-1 leads, I believe. That was his third blown 3-1 lead this year with the Clippers because he lacks to make adjustments to the opposing coach. And it's part of the coach's responsibility to mend between the players and to also make sure that they adjust to what is going on, to give them the basic game plan to adjust, because in the playoff, raw talent matters, but at the end, it's who wants it more sometimes. Clippers had some serious locker room issues and some trust issues, and I don't think that Doc Rivers was the guy for this job. He's a proven winner. I think he'll get a chance somewhere else, but he's had too many chances in LA with the Clippers, and it was obviously not working out, so it was time for a change. Another reason I believe they lost this series, and everyone knows this, Paul George played horrendous. It looked like he forgot how to play basketball. Can Paul George bounce back from this? I think so. Is he going to be the same player he was in OKC? I'm not sure next to Kawhi he will be, because Kawhi takes a lot of the stuff Paul George likes to do. So Paul George is becoming more of like a 3-point shooter, leading ball handler kind of guy, which is not really what he is. He is a very good slasher, and he can get that mid-range up over people. He's that smooth guy I talked about, like being able to fluid, get himself open. But Kawhi is the number one option, and Kawhi is going to get his at his spots. And the problem is that his spots kind of cover Paul George's spots a little bit. So I think that it's not going to work between them, which is another problem. I don't think that Paul George, I mean, it can work. They can win, don't get me wrong. But I don't think Paul George is going to play to the standard we want him to play to next to Kawhi Leonard. I also think they need a point guard who can take away ball handling duties from these two, because Paul George was basically running the point for them, because Patrick Beverley is not a point guard. He's just there playing defense and talking, to be completely honest with you. He's not going to organize your offense and stuff. He's not going to take away ball handling duties late in the game and make the right pass. Maybe they can even sign Rajon Rondo, take him away from the Lakers, get Derrick Rose, somehow get Chris Paul back. I mean, stuff like that would take them to a whole different level. I just saw a couple days ago a report that Kawhi was asking for a point guard, and that reminded me to make this podcast. I was like, hey, that's exactly what I thought. Kawhi needs a point guard there. They need a point guard, someone who can take away those ball handling duties from him and Paul George and let them do their thing in their spots. So another thing I want to talk about is Ty Lue a good fit? I don't really know if Ty Lue is a good coach or not, because when you coach LeBron-led teams, it's really hard to gauge if you're doing your job or not, because we all know LeBron is like a player coach. He's going to do whatever the heck he wants, and you have no say about it. And I really think that this is going to prove if Ty Lue can be a good coach. I think Ty Lue does fit two things the Clippers need, and they did not have with Doc Rivers. One of them, he's a player's coach. That's what I heard about him when I kept reading about him and listening on the news. Apparently, he will listen to what his players want and then make adjustments, and will try to mold their team chemistry together and make players get along, which is something the Clippers need. And another thing is, he was able... Granted, it was LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, especially LeBron and Kyrie, but he coached a team that came back from a 3-1 lead against the Warriors in 2016. And I mean, that is no easy task as a coach. The coach does serve a purpose there. Like, he is leading the team back. He has to tell them to not give up. He has to give them the right game plan to change what they've been doing, because it obviously didn't work. And to be able to do it 3 straight times with your backs against the wall, that takes a winner. So I don't know how I feel about Ty Lue. He has a lot of potential, but this season will prove if Ty Lue is a good coach or not. So I also read this thing the other day where Lou Will, Montrezl Harrell, and Patrick Beverley quote-unquote bristled at Kawhi Leonard preferred treatment by the organization. I'm not really sure why the other players would be mad at Kawhi getting preferred treatment, because, heck, he's Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's kind of obvious. I'm pretty sure everywhere you go, a superstar is going to get preferential treatment. I mean, if I was Paul George and Kawhi was getting it, I wasn't, I'd be mad. I was like, I'm close to his level, maybe, like in my eyes. And I'd be like, okay, I deserve that too. But if I'm Lou Will Harrell or Patrick Beverley, I'd be like, let him do his thing. He just came off a Finals MVP. I mean, I don't understand it. Lou Will also refute these claims. He said this is not true. So Kawhi was able to load manage whenever he wanted and was able to stay in San Diego in his house there. He was also able to be late for team flights, and Doc Rivers let him pull himself out whenever he wanted. Other than the late for team flights, I really don't see anything that would make me mad if I was a player there as well. Because being able to let him load manage would help them in the playoffs where Kawhi is more rested. And Kawhi played great throughout this playoffs, other than the last game against the Denver Nuggets where he shot 6 for 22. But let's just ignore that for the sake of this argument. And let him stay in San Diego. Who cares where he stays if he's on game day, if he's there. And letting him, Doc Rivers letting him pull him out whenever he wants. I mean, every great NBA player does that. I'm sure we just don't hear about it. I know LeBron and Kobe and Jordan did this notoriously. I'm sure other NBA players do it. I'm sure Damian Lillard can get off the court and get on the court whenever he wants, as well as Stephen Curry. I want to move to the second part of this podcast and ask this question: can the Lakers repeat? I know we talked about the Lakers a lot in this podcast, and I said some really good things about them and some not so good things about their depth. But if I had to make a guess right now, an educated guess and a prediction, it's really too early to tell, but I really don't think the Lakers are going to repeat. Even if they make the finals, I have a feeling they will not repeat. I think the competition will be much harder with the Warriors healthy next year. So even if they make the finals, the Lakers will be gassed. And the Warriors are hungry to get back to success. I mean, they got a number 2 pick in this year's draft. I can't wait to see what they do with that traded or pick. I'll have a draft video coming out in about a week, so stay tuned for that. I'm really interested to see how Steph and Clay come off their injuries. They're shooters, so it shouldn't really affect them that much. And I also want to see how Andrew Wiggins plays a role of this Warriors team. I really think he could help them spread the floor and take some attention off Clay and Steph, which is basically what KD did. But Andrew Wiggins is no KD, but it will serve sort of the same roles in that team. And I think Draymond will have a great season playing with shooters again. I think that's all he needs to be the player he is. I also think the Nets might have something going on there next year. I really like their team. I like Jared Allen. I like Spencer Dinwiddie. I like Karis LeVert. They might be trading for Drew Holiday. I think one of the best defensive guard, if not the best defensive guard in the NBA. KD is KD. We don't need to talk about KD. And Kyrie's Kyrie. I think my only problem is I don't know how their personalities will fit together. But considering they got Steve Nash as their coach, a player who was a 2-time MVP, and someone who they respect, I think that will solve that issue. I really think KD and Kyrie have something to prove. Kyrie needs to prove he can win without LeBron, and KD needs to prove he can win without the Warriors. Both of them got a lot of media hate on them, and they want to clean their name up and be able to show that they're winners. So they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder, and that's going to be scary. I think these are the 2 best scorers in our game, maybe, or at least 2 of them. James Harden, Damian Lillard, Curry. I mean, these guys are up there too, but KD and Kyrie, especially KD, is at the top of the pack. I also think the Clippers will learn from the mistakes, and with Ty Lue, who will make the necessary adjustments and trades, I think they'll be able to be a team that makes the finals or at least challenges the Lakers next year. I think we'll see a very hungry Kawhi. I think the Lakers also need to get rid of Danny Green. I'm not saying it because of his finals performance. I'm saying this because I just don't think he's a good fit there. I think Danny Green is a great defensive player, but Danny Green has not shot the ball well this season. He's getting paid a little bit too much, about $15 million a year for that. And I don't think KCP will re-sign, so they really need a new 3-and-D player. Maybe not even 3-and-D. They're getting Avery Bradley back, who didn't play in the bubble, I just remembered. So I think they could really go after a free agent like JJ Redick. If they want to win, they need a guy like JJ Redick, and they need to re-sign Dwight Howard. That is a must. So they need reliable shooters, and they need to keep their defense intact because their defense was incredible. So they need shooters, a typical LeBron teammate who can spread the floor. I also think if they can get their hands on Derrick Rose, if he's healthy, He's going to play like a borderline all-star player and could give you a lot of points. And he can also take away ball handling duties off LeBron sometimes to relieve pressure off of him and letting him maintain his energy for late game situations when it matters. Because even though LeBron's prime seems endless, at some point he's going to age. We don't know when that's going to come. I think Derrick Rose can really help this team in terms of ball handling duties and scoring off the bench. I also think we'll see AD have an MVP type season. I know he had an MVP type season this year, but I'm talking about like I think AD will have a better regular season than LeBron next year. I think this will be clear that AD's entering his prime. But if I have to make a super early prediction, again, I don't think the Lakers will repeat. I can't say who will win yet, but based on all the teams coming back hungrier and stronger, I see the Lakers having some serious issues and competition if they don't fill some of their holes, like re-signing Dwight, like I said. I don't think KCP will re-sign as much as there's media hate on him. Again, just like Danny Green, a great perimeter defender. I think Avery Bradley's going to serve that role. I think they really need to re-sign Rondo, make sure he doesn't leave unless they get a guy like Derrick Rose who can be as good of a fit in my opinion. They can sign both of them honestly, and then I really think they should get their hands on JJ Redick and make as many calls as they can and contact his agent, because I think if they can get JJ Redick and re-sign Dwight and get a point guard like Rondo or Rose next year, yeah, they may win, but those are some glaring holes that I see them having to fill. So this is pretty much all I got for today. Thank you for listening to episode 3 of the Mental Game Podcast. Follow me at IG at NaryTor27, and I'll be back next week. Peace.